Thank you. Hi. This year, I went through a personal energy transition. I went from working at one of the energy majors to become a founding partner in a business that brings a sustainable battery to the market. And I learned how critical energy storage is for the success of the energy transition. So I'd like to tell you about it, but more importantly, I hope you will also get involved. Ingrid Thijssen, she's the former CEO of one of our Dutch electricity network providers. And she calls the energy transition de grote verbouwing van Nederland, the great Dutch renovation. And I like that metaphor, because we need to renovate both inside our houses, but also reinvent the way we generate electricity and distribute it across the country. And don't worry, I will not try and cover all of the energy transition in this talk. I will focus on energy storage, which is one of our renovation projects that we must get right to meet our own energy transition ambitions. So what's the problem? We are used to centrally built power plants that generate electricity where we need it, when we need it, and exactly how much we need. So there's no need to store electricity. But that's not how renewables work. They are generated at many different locations where we have wind turbines or solar panels, and all these mini power plants generate electricity when we have sun and wind. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And that's a problem because we love energy and we need electricity for almost everything we do. It is the expectation that by 2050, we will use twice as much electricity as we use compared to today, with a growing world population and the electrification of the way we live. And we want that electricity to be sustainable. The Dutch Climate Agreement targets that already by 2030, 70% of our electricity will come from renewable sources of energy. And that's great news. But what happens when we add all that renewable energy to our current grid? We will have unexpected power outages, and the price of electricity will go up and down. So we need to solve that problem as part of our great Dutch renovation. The other day, I was browsing through the IKEA guide, and I came across this wisdom for renovation projects. And it said that for a successful renovation, you need to have a dream, a design, drive, and a deadline. And you know what? That actually applies to the energy transition as well. The dream and the deadline are clear. CO2 neutral by 2050, 70% of our electricity from renewables by 2030. But the design, and the way we're going to get there, the plan, has not yet landed. And we seem to lack the urgency, the drive to make some really difficult decisions on time. So energy storage is one of those. And as Joost said it, energy storage is hot. It's considered one of the missing pieces of the puzzle in the energy transition. So let me tell you a little bit more about battery storage, and certainly ours, because I'm proud of it. The most used battery today is made from lithium-ion, and you're probably aware of some of the concerns associated with that battery. It's made from rare resources that are mined under poor labor conditions and requires a lot of water and CO2. And you probably know from your cell phone or your laptop that they don't always have a very long life. So the challenge we have is that we want clean batteries for our clean energy. I do not believe that we will have one solution that fits all needs. And so lithium-ion may well continue to be the best solution for cars. But the world is searching hard to find alternatives that are both sustainable and affordable. So hydrogen could be such an alternative. It's early days, but it looks promising. and certainly for long-term storage, from summers with lots of sun to winters when we have little of it. Or flow batteries, like ours. Let me check if it's also there, because I want to show you. So flow batteries are also built for big storage. And so integrating them, for example, with solar and wind. And how do they work? Well, they're made actually of 2 tanks filled with liquids, called an electrolyte, separated by a membrane. And an electric current occurs when ions travel through that membrane from one tank to the other. And with that simple mechanism, you can charge or discharge a battery. I find it great to work with scientists that have actually developed a real breakthrough technology, a breakthrough solution in flow battery technology. And they've literally taken their ideas from the lab to a commercial product. And that's a process that's taken close to 10 years and more than $100 million in investment. So the main ingredient in our battery is vanadium. It's quite an abundant resource, but our producer actually retrieves the vanadium from industrial waste, from soot ash. And due to the patented special chemistry of our electrolyte, the battery has unlimited use over more than 20 years, requires very little maintenance, and it doesn't get warm or on fire, and it doesn't have capacity fade. And once it's at the end of its useful life, you can recycle all parts and use the electrolyte to build yet another battery. So I'm genuinely proud that our battery is a real sustainable storage solution. Oh, and if you use it intensely, it's actually significantly cheaper than lithium-ion. So you may think now, why is she doing a TED talk and not just selling these batteries? Well, we do that too, but there's something weird going on. Because as long as fossil fuel is still cheaper compared to renewables, and as long as our renewable energy can always be handed back to the grid at a guaranteed price, there's no economic drive to invest in storage. So that brings me back to our great Dutch renovation, because we need to fix that problem. Because we want to have that 70% of electricity in the mix by 2030. So what are the design obstacles that we need to overcome when we want to integrate all those renewables? Well, the first one is that most renewable energy is actually generated in the north of the country or offshore. But we use most electricity in the southwest of the country. So lots of electricity in Friesland, but our current grid is not built to transport it to the Randstad. Nor do we have the possibility to store it. So if we don't use it, we'll lose it. And then there's the problem that we do not always have sun and wind. So most renewable energy is actually generated during the day. But we use most electricity between 6 and 10 at night, when we come home, plug in our cars, start cooking, laundry, watching television. So in tomorrow's world, we need to collect the electricity, the energy, when there's sun and wind, transport it to the place where we need it, and store it for when we need it. So that requires a major investment in our electricity grid and in storage. Well, you may think, hey, we've got 10 years to do that. That's a long time. But to reinvent our power infrastructure, we really need to start today. But if we wait with our investments until they are risk-free or profitable, we will have missed our deadline and possibly disrupt energy continuity. And I don't think we can afford either one of these. So I hope that by now you're thinking, hey, but what is it that I can do to be prepared? Well, as consumers, we can all be smart and efficient in how we use electricity. And we can start preparing our houses, that indoor renovation, to move from gas towards electricity. But for companies and municipalities, there are already great opportunities. So take this creative example where we work with a fantastic CO2-neutral beach club at Terschelling, at West aan Zee. And they plan to build a carport covered with solar panels over a big parking lot, store the electricity and not just use it themselves, but to create a sustainable energy community with their neighbors. It takes entrepreneurs, volunteers, experts who volunteer their knowledge, the municipality, the province, to collaborate to develop such a plan. But there's far more to storage than integrating it with solar and wind. Have you thought about that diesel generator that you need for backup power? Why not replace it with a clean battery that can even work both ways and earn you some revenue? Or as a nitrogen-free solution at your construction site or festival location? And all those electrical cars that we need to fast charge at the side of the road, they need energy storage, they need buffers to help us all out. And that brings me to drive. And we need a drive for that renovation project. And it takes drive to change our habits and to search for innovations. And I can tell you from working with my colleagues that research, innovation takes lots of drive. It's not a process that comes with guaranteed success. It can be costly, take a long time through trial and error. So my colleagues started working on the first sustainable storage solutions 30 years ago, when most of us did not even realize we had this problem coming. So think about the drive you need to keep going for 30 years. But you know what? We are super dependent on these innovators. Some 50% of the emission reductions that we need by 2050 will come from technologies that are just in their infancy issues today. So we need to help innovators, we need to foster them. So let's not turn them into legal or fiscal campaigners or subsidy experts. There's no time for that, and they're not good at it either. So I know from my personal experience that policymakers can help and make it easier for us to bring innovations into the real society. Just think with us in terms of possibilities rather than obstacles. Economic profits can also be a very powerful source of drive. And money makes the world go round. But as I said before, then the market is not yet doing this. But we have no time to wait for the market. So what can be done to get going? Well, subsidies and financial guarantees can help to make early investments in innovations attractive. And look what happened to solar and wind. And that works. But even more important than financial support are clear and consistent policies, because they provide a roadmap to future cost and benefits, and that takes out risk. An entrepreneur will want to know what technologies or emissions will be allowed in future, so that they can plan their next round of investments. We need to be able to have trust and long-term clarity on fiscal treatments and subsidies. Take out the risk from the economics in your project. And we have some great examples. The EU has set aside a fantastic subsidy to build an entire sustainable value chain for batteries in Europe. And at the same time, they're changing the law. So they're also making it mandatory that batteries within the EU will be more sustainable. So a carrot and a stick. So the nice side effects of that are that we are creating jobs in Europe, economic growth, and we become more independent for something as strategic as energy storage. So we've got help at European level. But I'd like to ask for that as well at national and local level. As I said, there's little time, and we really need to get going and learn, practice, how do we store energy at grid scale? Together, we are working on a once-in-a-lifetime renovation project. We want our new reality to be sustainable. We know the outline, but there's still a lot to be done, and there's little time. So I have 2 calls to action. Policymakers, please help us set the rules of the game so that we get the market going, because we need to learn and practice how we can make the energy transition work. And to all of us, consumers, investors, entrepreneurs, there are mind-blowing innovations out there. I hope you got curious, try them, and that your next choice will be a sustainable one. I got curious about a battery this year. So what are you going to explore? Thank you.